So far, so clear, yes? Yeah. Okay? Yeah? Okay. Now, if you are asked to calculate formation pressure, always use the hydrostatic from the drill string side, because that's clean mud. Okay? So always use this one. Remember, for the stabilized shell and drill pipe pressure, the bottom hole pressure is equal to formation pressure. Okay. This is going to be a bit difficult to teach because there's no communication. Barrier definition. Guys, if I'm going too fast, if you need me to repeat something, okay, wave your hand in front of the camera, okay, or better still, just send me a WhatsApp message saying, hey, can you repeat?
Okay.
Okay?
Yes.
So, barrier. Barrier definition. Any device. It can be a fluid, a substance, or it can be a mechanical device, okay, that prevents the flow of wellbore fluids. That device can be at surface, or it could be at the bottom of the well. Okay? Now, when we're talking about barriers, okay, there are two. Also the envelope. So in primary well control, your mud is a barrier element, but it can also be the envelope as well. Boom, 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 boom. Right, now, what happened? Well, they decided, we're going to ignore the drilling program, we're going to keep on drilling. Perfect. So, guys, I do not recommend you ignoring the well program. Okay? So, they kept on drilling. They broke through the reservoir. They were expecting gas, and instead they got hot, volcanic mud. If anybody's done geothermal drilling, you'll understand the problem.
हाँ
And by the
जी
time it came
हैंडसम
to
कमरान भाई
surface,
जी मेरी क्लास
it
लगी
actually
हुई
came
ना
to
इसलिए
surface
साइलेंट किया हुआ
at a distance from the rig.
क्लास लगी हुई मेरी ना
It broached.
आप सुन रहे
When
होगे
a well
आवाज़ ना इसलिए
broaches, what it
ਤੁਹਾਡਾ
basically
ਸਵਾਗਤ
means
है
is the
जनाब खान
formation fluid
ਕੀ
is
हाल चाल है
reaching the surface
अगर नहीं हो तो प्लीज़ सब कर
outside
दो मुझे
of your well.
मैं बाद में
Okay,
आपको
there's
रिटर्न दे
no
दूँगा
way you can use your well to kill this now. No way. The only other choice now is you've got to drill a relief well. Okay. So in this situation, so your secondary
थैंक यू जिंकी जी
envelope
थैंक यू ਤੁਹਾਡਾ
is
बहुत बहुत
made
धन्यवाद
up of well
जिंकी जी
barrier elements that are dependent.
हाँ जी क्लास
Now,
लगी ना
barrier
इस करके
theory.
मैं फ्री होके करांगा यहीं
Now,
रहो
API did not come up with this stuff.
साथ दबो
Norsok did. Okay, Norsok. That's the
LTR दे
Norwegian
दो
Petroleum
कम्युनिटी के ऊपर
Directorate.
भी दे दो तो उधर से फ्रेंड बन
Okay,
जाए
the initials are Norsok, but it's in Norwegian. There, we're still testing in the direction of flow, but instead of increasing the pressure in the well, what we're doing is we're decreasing it. Okay, so now the formation pressure is going to be high, so we're creating an underbalanced condition to try and induce the well to flow. Now, comparisons. Okay, drilling and intervention. So, on the drilling side, okay, primary and secondary barrier. Primary barrier, that's our drilling fluid. It's designed to prevent the formation fluid entering the well. How is that possible? We make sure that A, the well is full of mud, and B, the density is greater than the effective formation pressure in PPG on the well. if for some reason our mud fails, then we've got our secondary barrier, and that prevents any formation fluid that enters the wellbore from exiting to the environment. So we're going to use our BOPs, we're going to shut in the well, trap the pressure, and then we'll circle it out through the choke manifold. So secondary barriers are designed to prevent flow, okay, from the source. In this case now it's going to be the well, to the environment. But let's now go over to well intervention, because if well intervention, we've already drilled the well, it's already been produced, it's got a completion tubing inside. So let's say we're running coiled tubing. So maybe we're running coiled tubing into the well while we're still producing. Maybe we're doing a clean out job. Okay. So in that case, we'll have a stuffing box or a stripper, and that will form a seal at the surface around the coiled tubing. That will prevent any fluids in the well escaping to the environment. Okay, because we're going to have fluids coming up the surface, going out the production line. So that's our primary barrier. Now our annular on the drilling side would be primary. So, secondary. But for well intervention, it will be primary because we're going to strip the BHA through that. Once the BHA is in the well, we use the stripper, and that will wrap around the coiled tubing. So drilling, annular is secondary barrier. Intervention, the annular is primary. We'll have a special BOP, and the ram preventers will be the secondary barriers. So if, for example, our stripper fails, we can shut in the well with our BOP below it, our ram preventers. Now, if it's a high pressure well, we might have a tertiary barrier. That is an extra set of blind shear rams, and we call them shear seals. A shear seal is basically a blind shear ram that sits directly on top of your Christmas tree. The idea is that if your secondary barrier fails, this is your last resort. Okay, we'll pick up, close the shear seal. Okay, drop the coiled tubing through the tree, and then we'll close our master valves. So basically, primary barrier. First object that prevents flow from a source. First object. So we're drilling. The first object is the mud. Prevents flow from a source. So you're preventing a flow of formation fluid from the source, which in this case is our formation. But we go back. Well, intervention, our primary barrier is our stripper, our stuffing box. Now, formation fluid's already in the completion stream, so prevents flow from source. Okay, so the stripper's function is to prevent flow of formation fluid from the source, the completion stream, to the environment. Okay? Now we go back. Secondary, we can basically use the same analogy. This is the second object that prevents flow from a source. So, our drilling, our BOPs, our ram preventer and our annular preventer. Remember, we've already got the formation fluid now in the well bore. So the secondary barrier is the second barrier that prevents flow from a source. So it's going to prevent the flow of formation fluid that's already in the well bore into the environment. Okay? Well intervention, secondary barrier, it's going to be our ram preventers, not our angler, our ram preventers preventing the flow of formation fluid in the completion string to the environment. Is that clear, guys? Yeah? Okay, awesome. They might ask you this in the test. This is why we're going over it. Now, barriers. Mechanical and hydrostatic. So, a ram preventer, an annular, that's considered a closable barrier because we can open them and close them as required. HCR, okay, closable barrier. Cement, once we put the cement in place and it's set, that's it, it's a closed barrier. Okay, casing, it's a closed barrier. Now, these are going to be pressure tested. However, we cannot test the mud. We cannot pressure test it, but what we can do is we can monitor it. Now, remember the formula. Hydrostatic pressure is equal to the mud weight times the constant times TVD. So, how do we confirm our hydrostatic pressure? Well, number one, we can confirm the mud weight using the mud balance. Every 15 to 30 minutes, we will weigh the mud. We'll do our mud checks. Mud weight in, mud weight out. Okay? So that takes part of that part. But how do we know the well is full of mud? It's not enough to have circulation. Oh, we've got mud coming over the flow line, so the well must be full of mud. No, it doesn't have to be. You can have a kick in the well and mud's coming over the flow line. So if we suspect a kick, what do? We flow check, yeah? You're drilling, or when you're doing activity on the well, if you suspect a kick, we stop the activity and we flow check, yes? We line up to the trip tank and we monitor. Flow or no flow. If we have negative flow, that means no flow. That means, okay, our mud is a barrier. If we actually have flow, it's failed, we've got a kick, okay, then we've got to shut in the well. So we confirm our well is full of mud using a trip tank. This is important. Think about your BOP. Every 2 to 3 weeks, we will do a pressure test. That is confirming the integrity of our BOP. Okay? When we do a flow check, we're confirming the integrity of our mud. Okay? Is that clear? Good? You got me? Now, guys, you're going to have to send me the answers via WhatsApp. Why not? No, you cannot see?
I can see. Can you explain me again?
when you are drilling, your mud is, you can always consider your mud primary barrier.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
Every 15 to 30 minutes, you will do a mud check. And the idea of the mud check is to confirm the mud weight. Being returned. Okay?
Okay.
And you're looking at your return flow, and you're looking at your pit deviation. You're also looking at your drilling parameters. Okay? We assume
Okay.
unless anything tells us different, we're okay. Okay? So we assume. Okay, we're drilling okay, we must be overbalanced. But anything like a increase in ROP, maybe changing cutting size, a little bit too much background gas. Okay, maybe we have a kick, but we are not sure. Okay.
Okay.
The only way to be sure is to do a flow check. So you pick up off bottom, stop the rotary, stop the pumps,
Okay.
line up the trip tank, and monitor the flow. If we get no flow into the trip tank, it means that the hydrostatic pressure in the annulus over formation pressure, we are good. We have just confirmed our mud is a barrier. If on the other hand, we start to see the trip tank volume increasing, that's telling us, we have a problem. We have got flow from the formation into the well bore. Our mud is no longer a barrier. Okay, so the trip tank is an important tool in confirming whether or not our mud is overbalanced. Is that clear, AJ?
Yeah, it's clear now.
Just send me a quick text, yes or no, to show me you understand, because I know you don't have a camera. Okay, good.
Okay, sir.
Okay, yeah, but I'm looking, I know, Ariel, I know it's clear with you. Okay, good, okay. Good. So, going back now. Okay, so the next question. I got an offer for B. I got an offer for A.
What is the correct definition of secondary well barrier? Secondary barrier is the first subject document. Two.
Any more, gentlemen?
What is
Guys, the answer is A, dependent. Remember, think about the links.
according to the API standard.
Okay,
Defining barrier element
DOP,
from the
wellhead,
to the another to the
casing, cement. Okay, so if we get a kick, Okay? Right. So, if we get a kick, right, then it doesn't matter which one breaks. If the BOP breaks, we have a big problem. If the wellhead breaks, we have a problem. If the casing fails, we have a problem. If the cement fails, we have a problem. So for secondary well control to work, all of them have to work together. Okay? If one fails, the envelope fails. A bit like your car. You got your four wheels. You're driving down the road at 70 miles an hour. One tire goes out. What's going to happen? The car's going to go off the road, isn't it? Does it really matter at that which tire has blown out? No, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if it's the front left or the front right, the back left or the back right. Does not matter, because the effect is the same. You're going to lose control of your car. Okay? That's the same here. It doesn't matter which one fails. The fact it fails means you're going to lose control of the well. Okay? Now, the one thing that all the wells I've selected this morning, Lapindo, Macondo, Montara, they all had one thing in common: dodgy cement. Dodgy cement. Okay? Now, is it clear about dependent elements? Clear? Good. So, gentlemen,
To well in which the oil has been lifted or pumped out,
I've gone
needs
off
the
of A.
same control barrier as well, in which the oil flow
D.
out of it on code,
D.
in which direction should a barrier be tested?
So number one,
In the direction. In any direction. No.
number one. Don't worry about number two, yeah? Only worry about number one. Bala, what's D then? Right. Number one is yes. Number two, in direction of flow. Good. Okay? Right. Now, well barrier management. Guys, when we talk about well barrier management, it's not enough to say your BOP is a barrier. What makes a BOP a barrier? Well, number one, it's got to be certified. So when you buy the BOP, it goes through a show-proof test. And every 5 years, you have to get it recertified. That's one thing. Number two, the rated working pressure of BOP must be more than the expected surface pressures you're going to get if you shut the well on a kick. Okay. And then you have to pressure test it to make sure it can take those pressures at least once every 21 days. I know it had not just 14 days, but API says it must not exceed 21 days. That 21 days is 14 days plus 7-day dispensation. The reason why ADNOC does it, you're doing every 12, 13, 14 days, is because ADNOC does not like to give dispensation. Okay? Some rigs I've worked on in the past, okay, you always apply for dispensation. Every time. Subsea, every time you always, dispensation, 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 always. In fact, I've never worked on a subsea wellhead where dispensation was not given. So you got your test frequency. Then you've got your procedure. What is the procedure for the pressure test? And you follow that procedure. So you've stated what the barrier is, why it's a barrier. Okay. What is a barrier against? How it's used to stop the pressure, and also all the things that you do to make sure it is actually an active barrier. So with the BOP, every week a function test, every 7 days a function test, ADNOC every 14 days pressure test or less. Okay, that's what defines your BOP as a barrier. Your casing is defined as a barrier. What's its job? Its job is to make sure that any gas circulating up the cased hole section does not go behind the casing at either during the body of the casing or especially at the joints. Okay, how do we do that? Well, number one is we inspect the threads before we bring them up to the rig floor. The casing is inspected, it's drifted, etc., etc. The threads are inspected. When we make a connection, we torque up the connections to a specific torque, and you have a small range to work with. When you run the casing in the hole, we're going to do a pressure test to make sure that the casing can take the pressure required without bursting. Okay, so that defines, okay, why casing is a barrier. Is that clear? You cannot just say it's a barrier because I said so. It's a barrier because it's a book. No, you're defining what makes it a barrier. So, for example, the BOP, we're going to do a pressure test. Yes, the technical specification of the casing, like the you are running you're running casing. So you need to make sure that first thing you're going to do is, okay, first thing you do is when you're designing a well, the first thing you do is you do your collapse pressures, burst pressures, and axial pressures. That's the first thing you do. What is the burst pressure it's going to take? What is the collapse pressure it must withstand? What is the axial, the tension load it must take? So we do all those calculations, and that will give us a list of casing that we can use. Okay, we'll immediately, or you could say, it'll immediately cut out some casings. Then the next step is, because these days we don't want to spend a lot, we want to minimize the cost. So what we're looking for now is the casing that we can use. We can run into the well, okay, that will meet all our pressure criteria, but will not cost too much. Yeah, J55, K55 in most cases. Yeah, why not? Does the job, is cheap. But sometimes you might have to go for specialist casing or higher rating casing. Okay, and then if you go to deep well, you got to take into account the higher tensile. Yeah, but the first thing we got to do is do what is our predicted collapse pressure, what is our predicted burst pressure. Yeah, but don't worry, it's not the scope of this course. Don't worry about that too much. But your BOP, you're now going to say, okay, my BOP is going to be a barrier. So one of the things we have to do is the pressure test. When we do the pressure test, the driller does the pressure test, and at the end of the pressure test, he signs it. Now, he's signing it because what he's saying is he has performed the pressure test as per the criteria, or as per the test program requires. So, for example, we're pressure testing the BOP. The test pressure, if it's initial test, will be the rated working pressure. Okay. The test fluid will be water because it's considered incompressible and solids free. The system or the components pressure tested, so annular, pipe ram, blind shear ram, spool, another ram. Okay. And then it may be estimated volume of the capacity of the BOP, and in some cases maybe volume pumped. Case definitely volume pumped. Okay. Now we're pressuring up the well, or pressuring up the BOP in this case. Okay. Hopefully not the well. So we're pressuring up the BOP, and the pressure has been recorded on a chart. We hold the pressures for our predetermined time, and then, okay, so hold it past, okay, bleed off the pressure, next preventer. We'll work our way down. So we'll start with the annular, then we'll go to the top preventer, and we'll go down the stack from top to bottom. Okay, annular is always first, and the blind shear ram is going to be last. Okay, so then what happens is, after the test, the representative from the drilling company, ARM or the rig manager, they will sign the graph. Now, when they're signing the graph, what they're saying is that the test was performed as per procedure. They witnessed it, and that the graph is a true and accurate representation of the pressures that were involved. And when the DS signs it, he's signing it as a representative of the client company. And he's also signing for the same reasons, that this is a true and accurate representation of the pressures that the BOP underwent. And I was there and I witnessed it. After the pressure test, if one of these people refuses to sign the graph, the pressure test is not valid. Okay? Maybe the driller's not happy. Maybe the rig manager's not happy. Maybe the DS is not happy. Maybe they're all not happy. Okay? And so then they'll have to do it again. Clear? Yes? No? Yeah, okay. Right. Now, we talked about direct direction already. Monitoring. Okay? So we're going to pressure test our barriers, but we also have to monitor. So, for example, the BOP. Every time the driller comes, starts his drilling day, one thing he's going to do is walk around. Okay? He's going to do his walk around, and he's going to check the Kumi unit. He's going to check the BOP. Okay? So it's going to be a visual inspection. Okay? He's also going to check the Kumi unit, visual inspect that, and also look at the pressures. He's also going to look at the pressures on the BOP control panel. So that happens every day. In fact, twice a day, beginning of each shift. Every time you shut in the well, you do a visual check. Make sure there's no leaks, etc. Okay? Now, risk management. So, risk management. Every job has a risk. no matter what you do, right? You have to weigh up the dangers, okay, and is it worth doing? Find out what the dangers are. What can we do to minimize those dangers? Now, when we talk about risk, we talk about two things: probability and severity. What is the chance that this can happen? That's your probability. What is the severity? Okay? So, look at, for example, Jeff Bezos. Okay? Used to be one of the richest, was the richest man in the world until he got divorced. Okay? When you marry, what is the risk? You might get divorced. Oh. Right? And the wife takes your money. Well, in the West, probability is that basically 1 in 2 marriages fail. What's the severity? Well, if you're married to Jeff Bezos, nearly half your fortune goes to your partner. So if you're the wife, you've just become a billionaire overnight. Okay? But on a more serious side, we can look at things like pinch points, risk. You have a very, very high risk. In fact, the probability of you getting a pinch point injury on a rig during your working life is more or less guaranteed. You are going to get a pinch point injury. I don't know anybody who's worked on the rig for more than 10 years who can honestly say with a straight face, no, I've never got a pinch point injury. Okay? Right? There we go. So the probability is, okay. But pinch point injuries won't normally kill you. Normally, maybe half an hour, can't work, and then you're back at work again. So the severity is considered low. Now, there are things we can do to reduce the severity. There are things that we can do to reduce the probability. For example, we have training. Before you use the equipment to do a job, you are trained to use the equipment. Okay? You are made aware of the dangers. After you've been trained to use the equipment, in many cases, you will not go out and use the equipment alone. You'll be mentored to make sure that you're using the equipment correctly. And once people feel that you are competent to use the equipment safely on your own, they will allow you to use it on your own. So we are now reducing the probability. Okay? Meetings, trainings, and awareness. You might have posters highlighting the dangers of a certain job. So it always keeps you in the front of your mind. Then we have severity. How can we reduce the severity? Well, you're handling drill pipe. Maybe you get a pinch point injury. Okay? Now, you can wear impact gloves. Okay, help protect your fingers. Okay, if you accidentally put your finger on the shoulder of the pin, of the box, when they lower the pin in, okay, and the shoulders meet up and your fingers in the middle, okay, your impact gloves aren't going to help you. You just kissed your finger goodbye. Okay, but if you're opening the elevator, etc., and you bang your fingers as you open them, close them. Okay, boom. Okay, painful. Okay, but you'll survive. So we're looking at probability times severity. So most point injuries is not going to kill you. Okay, right? Half an hour of work, but probability very high. So the risk is considered high. We go to the other extreme. If you're running a radioactive source in your drill string, okay, the probability of that radioactive source being released into the environment is extremely low. You've got more chance of putting your name in the Dubai lottery and winning it 3 times in a row than your radioactive source being released into the environment. But the risk is still there. The severity is very high. You'll contaminate the BOP, you'll contaminate the rig, you'll contaminate the mud, you could contaminate the environment around the rig, and the cleanup just go back, just check, okay? Yeah. Okay. Now, MOC. MOC is a bit like risk assessment, but you've changed a part. There's a change in a procedure. There's a small change, maybe due to the conditions. You need to change how you're going to do this particular job, or maybe you've installed new equipment.
ਹੈਲੋ ਹੈਲੋ ਜ਼ਿੰਦਗੀ ਜੀ, ਹੋਰ ਭੈਣੇ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਮੇਰਾ ਸਾਥ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਇੰਨਾ। कैसे हो कमी जी? ठीक ठाक हो? कमी पैसा अब न्यू हो मेरे में, और क्या पहली बार आए ना एलवी में? कमी पैसा जी आप फर्स्ट टाइम आए हो ना मेरी एलवी में? मेरी क्लास लगी हुई थी तो अभी थोड़ी ब्रेक मिली है। मेरी क्लास लगी हुई है, ऑनलाइन क्लास है, अभी टी ब्रेक है 15 मिनट के लिए, तो मैं आ गया। अच्छा अच्छा, आप हैंडसम बॉय हो, ओके गमरान जी, ठीक ठाक। क्या ज़िंदगी जी, क्या हो गया? इंस्टा आईडी बन गई आपकी? मुस्कुराती भैन सिस्टर मेरे है। अब मेरी इंस्टा आईडी पे भी फॉलो कर लो, सेम चैनल का नाम है मेरे इंस्टा पे, तो कमरान भाई आप उसमें फॉलो कर लो, मैं आपको फॉलो बैक करूँगा, मेरे को मैसेज कर देना इंस्टा पे, ठीक है? और ज़िंदगी जी आप भी कर देना। ओके जी, आपकी दूसरी आईडी है, ठीक है जी, अपनी दूसरी आईडी से लाइक तो कर दें। कमी आप हंस क्यों रहे हो? हंसते क्यों हो? हंसो नहीं, सीरियस हो के बात करो मुस्कुराती के साथ। और सुनाओ। कौन सी सीसीटीवी बनी हुई है जिंदगी जी मेरी भैन? सीसीटीवी बनी हुई है। थैंक यू जी, थैंक यू। ਤੁਹਾਡੀ ਐਲਬੀ ਕਿੰਨੇ ਵਜੇ ਹੁੰਦੀ है? कमरान दी तो रात ਨੂੰ ਹੁੰਦੀ 9 बजे ना, तो मुस्कुराती ज़िंदगी आपकी सुबह होती है और इवनिंग में ना। मेरी अभी आज का दिन और इसका 3 दिन क्लास है कंटिन्यू ना, 3 दिन मेरी क्लास है कंटिन्यू। कमी आपको पता है, ड्रामा ना करो, बताओ जना। कमी कमरान जी चेक करें, डन किया है तो कमरान जी आपको डन कर दिया है, आप चेक कर लें। आपको डन कर दिया है। ने मैसेज किया है इंस्टा पे। अच्छा मुझे भी मैसेज कर दो कोई भाई, मैनू भी मैसेज कर दो, मेरी इंस्टा ते फॉलो करो मैनू। पंजाब कल्चर इन दुबई मेरा इंस्टा है, तो उत्ते फॉलो कर लो, पंजाब कल्चर इन दुबई करके उत्ते मैसेज कर दिया करो, जिन्ने भी हेल्प भी करनी जिंदगी जी, तुसें हेल्प भी करनी उत्ते शेयर कर दिया करो। इदा कई बार ना पता नहीं लगता इंस्टा ते ना, सॉरी यूट्यूब ते। क्या हो गया लाइव? बहुत शुक्रिया, आपको कल बैक करूँगा इंशाअल्लाह के। अच्छा लाइव, बहुत शुक्रिया, आपको कल बैक करेंगे इंशाअल्लाह। लाइव को बोल रहे हैं। और सुनाओ, सब ठीक ठाक हो? और जिंदगी जी छुट्टियां पईयां ना, अज लॉकडाउन लग्या होया, अज तो वैसे भी संडे है। हाँ जी हाँ जी, आप करो मैसेज करो मेरे को इंस्टा पे, ठीक है। मेरे को देखो एक इंस्टा पे है, वो मेरी एक वीडियो वायरल होगी इंस्टा पे, आपको दिखाता हूँ अभी। अब देख रहे हो, इंस्टा खोलो, देखो 20 लाइक ये हो गए, देखो देखो 605 टाइम लाइक मिल गया इसका। हाँ जी, छुट्टियाँ छुट्टियाँ, अज संडे की छुट्टी, वैसे भी करोना बड़ा वध गया होया कहते हैं ना। कोरोना भी वध गया होया, वैसे भी है। ईद तक छुट्टियाँ ओके। 2:45 हो गए भाई दुबई का टाइम। मुझे कुछ नहीं बताया आप लोगों ने, दुख हुआ मुझे फ़िक्र हो रही है कमी। यार क्लास जेह्ड़ी ना बड़ी औखी क्लास नहीं लगदी लाइव LV दे विच क्लास लानी बड़ा औखा काम है ना। नहीं मैं दुबई नहीं गया, घरे ही हाँ। दुबई कितना जाना, मेरे यहाँ वो फ़्लाइटें बंद हो गई ना, मोदी ने इतना काम ख़राब कर दिया, फ़्लाइटें बंद हो गई हैं। तो मेरी पहले 26 की टिकट थी, कैंसिल हो गई। फिर कल की थी 3 मई की, वो भी कैंसिल हो गई है। अभी देखो कब ओपन होएगा, तभी जाएंगे ना, कुछ पता ही नहीं
Okay,
कब जाना है।
Chowdhury, are you there?
क्लास स्टार्ट हो गई है। आप
Chowdhury,
इंडिया में ही हूँ, मैं इंडिया में भी हूँ, अभी इंडिया में ही हूँ, मैं घरे हैं अपने घर पे ही हूँ।
ready? Yeah, I'm looking for Chowdhury. Chowdhury.
Yes, Charlie with you.
Ghulam Abbas,
हाँ जी बैसन जी, कमरान जी।
are you there?
Yes, yes,
My phone number.
yes.
Bashir Khatib, are you there?
Yes. Okay.
Bashir.
Yeah.
Okay. Did you send me your number? Did you send me your WhatsApp number? Bashir.
Okay, I will send you.
Bashir, send me your WhatsApp number.
Yeah, I will send you. I will send you.
Bashir, can you hear me?
Yeah,
To
I
me?
give you. I will send you the.
Your WhatsApp number. Send me. Okay? Chowdhury. Again. Send me your WhatsApp number.
Yes, please. Okay.
And Mohammed Ajay Kumar. Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
looking for. Yeah. The chair said this morning he was here. Bashir Khatib. AD 121. Okay? Right. Mohammed El Sayed. Is this the same Mohammed El Sayed who did the stuck pipe with me in March?
You.
Okay, again, if it is, just send me a
किसने
WhatsApp.
आपके मैसेज भी सीन नहीं किए? जिंदगी जी
Okay.
किसने नहीं किए? मेरे को आप नाम बताओ उसका, किसने मैसेज सीन नहीं किए? नाम बताओ उसका, मैं बताता हूँ।
Right.
मेरे कर लिया करो उसने, ठीक है?
Ariel, you should be in the group now. Bala, Ramil, you should be added to the group as well. Wei Hoi,
Yes.
again, you're in the group. Ajay,
यस सर
you're in the group.
ओके सर
Mohammed Nabil and Atumi, you're also in the group. Okay. So, Chowdhury, you said you were here this morning. I will need your WhatsApp number. And Bashir Katin.
Because I use it there, right? So I will send it from camp.
Okay. Okay. Right. Guys, I will send out some stuff on the WhatsApp after we finish today.
ओके
Okay, you will need a blank kill sheet today as well. So, YouTubing. Moving on. So, we look at a well and we fill it with 10 ppg mud. We pump it down the drill string and up the annulus. We can consider it basically like a U-tube. And it doesn't matter where we calculate the hydrostatic pressure from. It can be the drill string side, or it can be the annulus side. As long as both sides are open to the environment, then the hydrostatic pressure on and there's no flow, there's no mud movement. The hydrostatic pressure on the one side must equal the hydrostatic pressure.
ओके जिंदगी जी ओके
We must get 5
वायरल
barrels out
शॉर्ट
the
हो गए ना
annulus
मेरे
side.
अब
Okay.
दूसरी भी देखो कनक
5
वाली
barrels in, 5 barrels out.
ओके जिंतू जी, अल्लाह हाफिज़। थैंक यू आपका, आपने मेरी इतनी सपोर्ट की, आपका थैंक्स बहुत बहुत।